Hello, beautiful people. It's Lulu. I'd love to know, when did we decide creativity belongs only to artists? Who convinced us that a creative expression requires special talent, dedicated time, or even a particular personality type? The truth? That narrative serves those who profit from our self-doubt. What if creativity isn't a luxury or a career path, but rather essential medicine for our minds and a non-negotiable business advantage? What if experts like Martha Beck are right that engaging creativity for just minutes a day can literally rewire our anxious brain? Whether we use our hands, our voice, our body, or just our thoughts. Today, we're dismantling the dangerous myth that creativity is separate from everyday life. And I'll show you precisely why your mental fitness and, yes, your business success depend on reclaiming your birthright. Welcome to the Lulu Essey podcast, where we do things differently. There is no editing, no removing mispronunciations or awkward bits, and no polish. These are real, raw, honest conversations that offer you practical tools to transform your life from the inside out. Last week, we explored creativity beyond traditional definitions, examining how creative expression is our birthright, not just the domain of designated creatives. We looked at the truly disturbing disparity in creative leadership, the gender disparity, and how limited perspectives restrict our collective possibilities. Today, we're diving deeper into why creativity matters for everyone's mental fitness, for your business success, and how even the tiniest creative acts create significant neurological shifts. And I want to be open about something. I'm exploring this for deeply personal reasons. As many of you know, I'm in the final week of full-time employment after being let go. Next week, we'll be having an honest conversation about identity and how much we attach to our jobs. But this week, I want to talk about what's helping me navigate this transition. Creativity as essential medicine for our minds. Let me bring us back to what I shared in last week's episode. At its core, creativity is simply how spirit flows through us. And I use the word spirit purposefully open. Replace it with whatever feels comfortable to you. This definition matters because it pulls creativity out of the exclusive realm of art and puts it back where it belongs, in the messiness of our everyday lives. It's not about the outcome, it's about the process of being in flow with yourself. But somewhere along the way, we created this artificial separation between creative work and real work, between creative expression and productivity, between creative thinking and analytical thinking. This separation isn't just arbitrary, it's actually actively harmful. When we compartmentalize creativity, we're essentially telling parts of our brain, not now. You're not needed for the important, productive business stuff. But neuroscience shows this couldn't be further from the truth. Dr. Rex Jung, a neuropsychologist who studies the relationship between brain structure and creative achievement, has found that creative thinking activates entirely different neural networks than analytical thinking. When we engage in creative thought, we're literally building neural pathways that wouldn't develop through analytical thinking alone. This is neuroplasticity in action, the brain's ability to change and adapt. And creative engagement lights that process up like nothing else. Think about what this means. When we separate creativity from our daily lives, we're actively stunting our neurological development. And here's what's even more interesting. The brain networks activated during creative thinking are the same ones that help us find our way during uncertainty. They help us manage our emotions and develop the emotional resilience we need, not just to survive, but to thrive. In other words, the very skills we need for true sustainable mental fitness. So let me ask you, when was the last time you gave yourself permission to be creative without judgment, without needing to produce something good enough to justify the time spent, but just for the sheer joy and neurological benefit of the experience? Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, oh, that sounds really nice, Lulu, but I don't have time to be creative. I've got deadlines, responsibilities, people depending on me, a job to do, kids to take care of. Let's examine this belief together because it's one of the most pervasive and damaging myths about creativity. And that is that it requires a ton of time that none of us have. Creativity doesn't need to be scheduled for 2-hour blocks with special materials and perfect conditions. It can be woven into the fabric of your existing life in ways that take seconds or minutes, not hours. I like to call this creative weaving, the practice of threading tiny creative moments into activities you're already doing. For example, taking a different route to work and noticing 3 things you've never seen before, or intentionally taking a different route on your daily work. It could be responding to an email with intentionally different language than you normally use, or preparing a familiar meal with one unexpected ingredient, or a change in presentation. Approaching a routine meeting with one question you've never asked before. These moments might seem insignificant, but neurologically, they're creating new patterns in our brain, strengthening neural pathways that support flexibility, resilience, and innovative thinking. Now, how's that for radical ROI? Martha Beck's recent work on creativity and anxiety shows that even 5 minutes of creative handwork can significantly reduce anxiety by activating different neural circuits than those involved in rumination. And while working with your hands through activities like sketching, gardening, cooking, or crafting is incredibly effective for many people, I want to acknowledge that not everyone connects with hand-based creativity. The good news is that the principle remains the same, regardless of how you express your creativity. Dance, sing, do yoga, cook, write, move your body, or simply approaching familiar problems from unexpected angles. Whatever floats your boat. The neurological benefits happen when we break from habitual thinking and engage with novelty and possibility, however that looks for you. Remember, all my work is about finding your own way within all these tools. What small creative act could you weave into your existing routine today? Something so tiny it doesn't require extra time, just a slightly different approach to what you're already doing. It's not just poetic, it's physiological. Let's look at what's actually happening in your brain when you create. Because when you engage creatively, the science is fascinating. Dr. Kelly Lambert at the University of Richmond has conducted groundbreaking research showing that engaging in creative activities, particularly those involving our hands, increases the production of dopamine, the happy neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and with learning. This literally creates what she calls an effort-driven rewards circuit that counters depression and anxiety. When we engage in creative thinking, we activate what neuroscientists call the default mode network. It's a set of brain regions that come online or come alive when we're not focused on the external world. At the same time, parts of our executive control network remain active. This creates a unique state where imagination and control work together. This neural cooperation is why creative practice is so powerful for mental fitness. It literally is teaching different parts of your brain to work together more effectively. And these are exactly the neural pathways associated with emotional regulation, stress resilience, and cognitive flexibility. But I want to take away some potential stress here and be clear that these benefits are not dependent on artistic skill or talented. The neurological advantages come from the process, not the product. Your brain doesn't give a hoot if you create a masterpiece or a mess. It only cares that you engaged in the act of creation. I found this liberating when I discovered it. The pressure to make something good was actually inhibiting the very benefits I was looking for from my creative practice. When I finally gave myself permission to create without judgment, that's when the real healing and the real magic began to show up. This applies regardless of whether you're using your hands, as Martha Beck suggests, or engaging in other forms of creative expression. The key is finding your way to get into your creative flow state, that moment when you are fully absorbed in the process of making something that didn't exist before. For me, it's mixing items of clothing that seemingly don't match. It's playing with language in my journal or not eating the same meal over and over because I tend to get into these grooves where I will eat the same thing for weeks on end. These aren't big creative gestures. They're tiny moments of connection with my creative nature that build new neural pathways every time I engage with them. How do you get into your creative flow? What tiny practice consistently brings you into that state of absorption and presence, that state of peace and joy? Now let's talk about something that might seem completely separate, but is actually deeply connected. How creativity impacts business success. Because creativity isn't just good for your mental fitness, it's essential for your professional effectiveness, regardless of your field. Google's landmark Project Aristotle, their extensive multi-year study on team effectiveness, identified psychological safety and creative risk-taking as the top predictors of high-performing teams, ranking these factors well above technical expertise, experience, or even individual brilliance. Why? Because in today's rapidly evolving business world, the ability to innovate and adapt outweighs technical knowledge that quickly becomes outdated. The only way to stay relevant is by fostering environments where creativity flourishes. A McKinsey study found that companies scoring in the top quartile for creativity delivered 67% above average organic revenue growth. But here's where it gets interesting. The same neural pathways that creativity builds for mental fitness are exactly the ones needed for business innovation and adaptability. When we engage creatively, we strengthen our brain's ability to see connections to seemingly unrelated ideas. Questions established assumptions. We also strengthen our brain's ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. And we strengthen our brain's ability to generate multiple solutions to complex problems. These capabilities aren't just nice to have in today's business environment. They're essential survival and what I call thrival skills. I've just made up a word, thrival skills, the skills needed to thrive. I've experienced this firsthand throughout my career in creative leadership. The teams that integrated creative thinking across all roles, not just designated creative positions, consistently outperformed those that segregated creativity to specialized departments. And yet so many businesses still treat creativity as a separate function rather than an essential mental mode that everyone should access. They hire a few creative people and expect innovation to be contained within those roles. Come on. Can you see that this approach not only limits our business potential, it actively harms the mental fitness of everyone involved? When we tell people their job doesn't require creativity, we are literally instructing them to shut down vital neural networks that support mental health and cognitive flexibility. The division between creative roles and analytical roles is a false dichotomy that serves no one. The most effective leaders and professionals I've known are those who can access both modes and flow between them as needed. So ask yourself, how are you integrating creativity in your professional life? Are you treating it as separate from real work, or are you recognizing it as essential infrastructure for effective thinking? So, Let's get practical for a moment. I want to offer 5 tiny creative practices that support both mental fitness and business effectiveness. Each takes less than 5 minutes, but delivers compound benefits when practiced consistently. Remember, these aren't about producing masterpieces. They're about activating those neural networks that build resilience, flexibility, and innovative thinking. As we go through these, pause and jot down the ones that resonate most with you. Or send this episode to a friend who needs permission to create without pressure. Okay, the first practice I call the 2-minute perspective shift. Set a timer for 2 minutes. Choose an ongoing challenge in your personal or professional life. Now write down 3 entirely new perspectives on this challenge. Viewpoints you've never considered before. They can be serious or playful, practical or wildly imaginative. The goal isn't to solve the problem, but to exercise your brain's capacity to shift perspective. This practice builds cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt your thinking as circumstances around you change, which is essential for both mental fitness and business agility. Okay. Practice number 2 is what I call the metaphor minute. For 1 minute, generate metaphors for your current emotional state or business challenge. For example, my anxiety today is like a hummingbird trapped in a cage. Or, this project feels like trying to build a sandcastle while the tide is coming in. Metaphorical thinking activates connection between the analytical and creative networks in your brain, strengthening your ability to find new solutions to complex problems. Practice 3, the creative constraint. Choose a routine task, like writing an email, organizing your desk, or planning your day. Now add one unusual constraint, such as I can only use blue items, or I must incorporate 3 unexpected words, or I need to approach this backwards. Working within unusual constraints forces your brain out of habitual patterns, creating new neural connections that enhance problem-solving capabilities. The 4th practice is what I call the sensory shift. Take just 30 seconds to notice something in your environment through a sensory lens you typically ignore. If you're visually orientated, close your eyes and listen deeply. If you rely on hearing, focus intensely on textures. If you're verbal, try expressing your current experience without words. This practice activates the neural pathways we use least, expanding our perceptual capacity and enhancing our ability to notice what others miss, a key business advantage. The last practice, the tiny curiosity collection. Each day, capture one thing that sparks your curiosity. In your phone notes or a small notebook. No need to research it or expand or overthink it. Simply notice it and record it. This tiny habit activates your brain's curiosity circuits while creating a personal map of your interests that reveals patterns over time. It's the simplest foundation for innovation I know, yet most of us pass these curiosity moments without acknowledging them. Which one of these practices resonates most with you? Could you commit to trying it for 1 week not for the outcome it produces, but for the neural pathways it builds. Beautiful people, as we close today's exploration of creativity as essential medicine for our minds and businesses, I want to return to where I started. Creativity isn't a luxury, a personality trait, or a professional designation. It's a fundamental aspect of human cognition that builds the neural infrastructure for resilience, adaptability, and innovative thinking. It's how spirit, however you define that, flows through us. When we reclaim creativity as our birthright, we weave it back into the beautiful, often messy fabric of our daily lives. We're not just making things, we're making ourselves whole. We're literally building neural pathways that enhance our capacity to navigate life's complexities with greater ease and insight. Next week, we'll explore identity and how much of ourselves we attach to our jobs. This conversation, if it feels especially relevant as I navigate my own professional transition. But I believe the groundwork we've laid today is essential for that exploration. Because when we reconnect with our creative nature, we're reconnecting with something that transcends job titles and professional roles. Something that can't be given or taken away by external circumstances. So this week, I invite you to notice one moment of creativity in your daily life. Not to produce something impressive, but simply to engage with that essential part of yourself that sees possibilities beyond what already exists. And please, share this episode with someone who might need permission to reclaim their creative nature, whether for mental fitness, for business innovation, or simply living a more happy, vibrant life. And as always, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, with creativity, hope, and a sprinkling of magic, this comes straight from my heart to yours.